I wasn't planning to do much reporting, except situations when someone actually would try to closely overtake me, cut my way, put my life directly in danger. And now, as I had quite obvious case of phone use, I want to walk you through on how the report works like. And I'm doing that mostly because I want to show to the drivers that no, you are not anonymous on the roads. And yes, someone will eventually catch you. Is that true about drivers using the phones behind the wheel? Is that they use it all the time. Even if some people will call them when they are slowly moving or stopped, it's very likely they'll be using the phone in other situations. And that's why most people learned to never let these things go. One thing to remember, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police officer, and I don't advise you to record anyone. Anyhow, if it happened you record it, I would like to show you how you can send that to Metropolitan Police. The same system is used by around half of forces around the country. Others have something similar. One thing you should always remember is to put your safety on the first place. Try to not interact, check if you have a safe position, and try not to be noticed. Having said that, the best situation will be when we wouldn't have to report anyone. And why actually people report drivers on their phones, especially those in stationary traffic. One thing you have to remember is that every time you take your phone in your hand, if you glare on that device, even if it's in your cradle, you're losing your attention. Your cognitive abilities are dropping to around half a minute. By that time, someone can try to filter you. In the UK, pedestrians can cross in any place, and you wouldn't notice that. Cyclists can try to filter you, motorcyclists. Also, you wouldn't see traffic moving in front of you. So if you see massive queues, quite often, drivers on their phones are adding to congestion because they don't notice the lights have changed and others have to be behind them to make them move. You can check pinned tweet on my Twitter account to see the best example of how it works. When pedestrians try to cross and someone stationary almost hits them. I'll show you the video, but it will be partly censored because I don't want to obstruct prosecution. Once I do that, police will decide what to do with it. Situation was quite simple. Let's have a look. So I'm cycling on a bus lane. It's approach road to one of the bridges in London. Nothing special happens. I'm not planning to, not looking around even, to not see anyone. And then I pass this guy who has his phone on his ear, and that was quite clear. You don't see that too often, to be honest, in the UK anymore, but he's still moving, and you can see him taking the phone in his hands and continues. He's moving while using the phone. What I'm doing over here, after checking my position, negotiating with other drivers, I try to filter to his lane, and I'm very careful not to block the bus behind me or other cyclists, but also not to go in a conflict with vehicles coming from the other side. Then I carefully roll to him. And mostly because he noticed me, I respond and just carry on. He's apologetic, and that's quite typical. Most people either apologize to you or they'll try to be abusive and threaten you. That's why it's important to not be visible when possible. On my side, it wasn't perfect, but I had to safely join the traffic and just carry on. For different incidents, you need different kind of footage. If it's found, since the latest changes into the highway code and legislation, it's enough that police will see person holding the phone, looking at the phone, or looking on the phone in cradle while not driving carefully, so the car is wobbling and so on. If you have a situation when you just see the phone and car is moving, even if the screen is not lit, even if there is a map on the screen, that already qualifies as an offense. If a driver wants to use mobile navigation on a mobile phone, it should be in a cradle. And that's actually the only exception, except calling emergencies, actually calling police and ambulance, where the phone can be used. Anyhow, it's unwise to call ambulance or police while you're driving. It's better to pull, even if you are stopping the traffic and your car is not moving, it's still an offense. So what are you gonna do? First, it's worth to prepare. If you are not doing that often, you can just use some notepad, but I do have Excel spreadsheet. I learned that from other guys like Cycle Gas, Cycling Mikey, etc. It's helpful to gather all the information before. Documents I'll be showing you also will be censored because I don't want to share any private data or affect prosecution. So having the number plates, I can go to gov.uk, check vehicle tax, and check if the car is taxed and if I have plates correct, because some people have a custom plates which look slightly different to what they read. Put number plates, and now I'm sure that's actually that car. I know the make, I know the color. Sometimes colors would match, which on its own is an offense. Update to the color should be sent to DVLA. This vehicle is taxed and has MOT. Another useful thing is if you are running Strava or other GPS tracking, for instance, if you're using Google phone, you can check that on Google Maps. This way, you can provide correct timestamp for the event. So what I do, I look on my ride and I check where I was at that time. It was 40 minutes into the ride, which I started 7:17, 7:57 in the morning. So here we come to the reporting. At the moment, most police forces across the country use the same one, which is relatively simple to use. If you just follow the steps, you should be able to fill most of the events within 15 minutes. It starts with location. So we are trying to find the location which was crossing of, what I remember is a Chelsea Bridge. That happened on Chelsea Bridge. I go exactly, and that was actually on Chelsea Bridge. I need to zoom in and put the arrow over here. And I go next. In this case, the vehicle did not collide with anyone. This is quite important because in some forces, you have different departments looking after incidents with collision and without. And to be honest, in case of Metropolitan Police, you have better prosecution rate when there is no collision. For some reason, each is a possible driving offense, and it has to happen less than 10 days ago. The reason for that is there is a short window when police can send so-called notice of intended prosecution on NIP to the driver. You want to give them enough time to process everything on their side, and believe me, there's far more paperwork they have to do than you have to, and you provide that you have evidence. You acknowledge that you say the truth. At this point, of course, that will be censored, but you are providing your data. In case of Metropolitan Police, you give your title, first name, surname, date of birth, email address, your postcode, full address, and telephone number. From these details, nothing is shared with the offender, except if you are summoned to the court, they may learn your name because you'll be a witness. The next step is quite confusing. You're reporting it as a witness, and they're asking how you were involved. You were involved as a witness. But actually the question is how you were moving at the point. For the most reports, maybe that you were cyclist, but to be honest, many of us had been reporting when they were on foot. Quite a massive number of reports are coming from drivers, and in places like Wales, the biggest groups tend to be horse riders. And now we see how it was important to do some research on a driver. We choose who was involved. There was a driver. And what was kind of vehicle? He had a small van, which is goods vehicle under 3.5 tons. We put registration number, make, model, and a color. And then we can describe the driver. Probably wouldn't know the driver by the name or wouldn't have their contact details. But description is quite detailed because sometimes people try to swap the driver. If driver is not visible on the video, someone may ask the relative to take the points instead of them. Now it's the most labor-intensive part. We'll have to tell when they even happened, where it happened, and how it happened. The level of details will depend on kind of event. I'll come back to that later. So it was 11th May 2023, 7:57, and it was happening on Chelsea Bridge. Map is quite good in giving the location, but it's good to describe it more details, especially the direction of traffic. In this case, I'm saying that it was Chelsea Bridge, northbound. Weather conditions were quite nice, so I confirmed it was fine with little wind, daylight, and it was dry. That was even when I saw driver on the phone. So that's what I'm gonna tell. I wouldn't go too much into details because the case is clear and simple. If we were reporting on closed passes, not only we have to provide longer video showing 2 minutes before and after to prove that we haven't provoked anything, but also we have to give some points of reference. It's not because police don't want to prosecute the driver, it's because CPS, which is Crown Prosecution Service, sometimes make it quite difficult to build a case. Of course, they have massive load, so they need to choose what's worth prosecuting or not. In case of closed passes, it's good to give point of reference, like location of your vehicle on the lane and position of the driver. If you have evidence from back and front, it's also useful. If you're worried that someone may say that your camera is skewing the image, try to find straight lines on a video and use them as a reference. Handlebars, your racks, they're also good. It is, again, quite important, try to not interact. If interaction happens, cut it short and just continue. It will be safer for everyone. I choose mobile phone while driving. If you see the car wobbling, it's worth mentioning options like driving without due care. You have other options available for other incidents, like careless and inconsiderate driving. It's when someone is delaying traffic, someone is on WhatsApp and causing obstruction, or is driving very close to you or cutting. Driving through the red light is self-explanatory. No insurance is a funny one because in theory we cannot use AskMate to check insurance, but if you check it, makes it easier for police. In my understanding, lack of MOT and tax invalidates insurance as well. So I always tick this box. No driving license, I cannot check that. No complying with traffic signs. Invading cycle box used to be used for that. At the moment, there's specific option for that. Speeding, we can adjust that on bicycle. Stopping the cycle box area, advanced stop line. On this point, very short notice. Drivers can enter that while it's green. It's when it's turning amber or red, they should avoid it. They cannot do that, and then they can get fined. So if you're reporting anyone entering ASL box, ensure that your video shows them entering on red. And cycling close passes under 1.5 meter is considered cycling close pass. There are few situations where police is not sure if it's worth prosecuting, and in other forces they're using different rules. For instance, in some places in Wales, they use position of the wheels of the driver. If both wheels aren't on the opposite lane or the lane to the right, then it's considered close pass. In the next step, I'm providing evidence. I'm uploading the video which I prepared before. This part of the UI is sometimes confusing. You may be adding new fields without selecting the file. So have a play with it. You select the file and start uploading. In the meantime, I can describe all the event. Depending on the case, I may give information about like time and what's happening. And it makes it easier for officer to process it. This case is so clear that I don't have to do that. This is important point. Any change to the video could be used by the driver in their defense. In my case, I was using 360 camera. So I have to be honest that I have exported that without altering the content. I haven't used any filters. I only told camera where to focus. So now we have to wait for video to upload. It may take some time depending on your connection. The last bit under every bit of evidence you're providing is you decide if you want that to be passed to the third parties. Mostly we're talking about, over here about insurance. And to be honest, this is one of the most powerful tools against dangerous drivers, because every time they commit an offense, even if they are not found guilty, there is a record on the insurance and they may get extra payment. If you have witnesses, you can provide the details. Usually we don't. In the end, you have a summary of your statement and you can go to the next. In the last step, you confirm your code declaration. While it's uploading, let me talk you through the process. So for the most forces, you'll get acknowledgement of your report. In many cases, if they decide to prosecute, they'll send you a letter telling you that they wouldn't contact you anymore as long as you wouldn't be summoned as a witness to the court. They will also ask you to not put footage on the social media. And there's quite a debate of if you can do that and does it damage prosecution or is it legal? Common practice is to wait until the case is closed or around 6 months to 1 year. And I got reference number. I'll get the same number in email, so it's easier to keep track. And usually it will take around a week to 2 to get information if they decide to prosecute. Of course, it will depend on the force. Some forces still don't have such systems, like Police of Scotland. If the police found that the offence happened, and in most cases, in this case, they will try to prosecute. They will send not certain the prosecution asking for the details of the driver at the time, because it may be different than registered keeper of a vehicle, especially if it's lease or this company car. The registered keeper have time to respond. If registered keeper wouldn't respond, then it's summoned to the court for not naming the driver. And the fine is almost the same, if not bigger, than for driving with a phone. The registered keeper will get points, penalty. The driver may get conditional offer, which can be through training course, which is actually quite good. If the driver completes the course, the points are not awarded, but there is limited time how often such course can be paid. The driver may get also fixed penalty of this, which in case of phones usually is £200 and 6 points. And they just have to pay it. If they have 12 points or more, they'll be summoned to court, because most likely they will lose their driving license for some time. That may be a ban. That usually is banned for around 6 months or more. The driver may plead not guilty. In this case, he will be summoned to court. If prosecution deems case is simple, they may skip it. Fun enough, often when you just show up in the court, the driver will plead guilty. When you arrive in the court, remember you're a witness, and there is a system to protect your rights and your safety. When you arrive, go always to reception and say you're a police witness and you would like to see witness support. They will take you aside to secure room where you will meet with prosecutor, member of witness support who will explain you everything, and you may get tea and coffee. Sometimes they have a quite good Wi-Fi as well, because you may wait a while. Witness support is not part of a court, nor prosecution, and your safety and well-being is the main interest. If in any doubt, always go to them and ask. So I hope you like this video. I hope you understand how the process looks like, at least in London. But the most important thing, I hope you see how easy it is to report someone online. And many people are doing that, not the way they are seeing people on their phones, but because someone put them actually in danger. And the majority of reports still is coming from the drivers. Many people have dash cams. There are cameras all around us, and we have to remember we are not anonymous. When you're in your car on the road, you are not anonymous. Anyone is recorded by CCTVs around, and anyone's dashcam can capture what's happening. And this can be used against you. So the best defense to never get prosecuted, never get a fine, is to drive carefully, without distractions, and with full respect to all road users. And that's the same for drivers, cyclists, horse riders, and pedestrians. We just have to remember is when we are driving a few-ton box, it's easier for us to harm someone than if we are on a bicycle. Having said that, as a cyclist, we also have to be careful around pedestrians, because they can cross in any place. And no matter if they are in right and wrong, they have a priority. So at the end of the day, if we care about each other, this system wouldn't be used at all. See you next time.